Good afternoon. Welcome from IIT Gandhinagar to our course on Indian knowledge systems. This week we are deeply honored to host Dr. Nagaswamy. As the saying goes, he needs no introduction, and therefore I will make it very brief. He's a distinguished archaeologist, epigraphist, art historian of South India, and expert in both Sanskrit and Tamil literatures. And this makes him immensely qualified to address an old question, in fact, which many scholars have debated, and that is, how much of connection do we find between ancient classical Tamil literature concepts, devices, literary devices in particular, and their corresponding Sanskrit concepts, devices, and literature. So Dr. Nagaswamy has written a number of books, and even at his very respectable age of 91 years old, he continues to write new books. In the last few years, for example, The Mirror of Tamil and Sanskrit, Tamil Nadu, the Land of the Vedas, and more recently Dharma Yoga, and quite a few classics earlier. So he's a worldwide recognized scholar. He's been called for expertise in art history, for example, in the famous London Nataraja case, where he was instrumental in proving that a certain Nataraja icon had been stolen from India. There is so much more that I could say, but I do not wish to take more time, and I will invite Dr. Nagaswamy to give his first talk today, and then tomorrow, of course, we will continue. As always, questions are welcome in the chat box here or in the comments on YouTube, and we will take them up after Dr. Nagaswamy's talk. Thank you, Dr. Nagaswamy, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Danino. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great honor to have been invited to give this talk on a day when the greatest cricket ground has been inaugurated in Ahmedabad, the world's greatest one. It is as great as IIT Gandhinagar, which is also famous. I am very glad to meet you all, and I'm going to show you a PowerPoint program on the subject. Okay, so the topic of my talk today is interface with Sangam Tamil literature and Sanskrit. IIT Nagar, IIT Gandhinagar. This is the lecture one, and that's my name. I want our people to understand that when I talk about Tamil Nadu, my friends always feel that Tamil is the oldest area in the world, and Tamil is the oldest in the world. But I want them to see what is Tamil Nadu in the greater context of the world. Look at that. So we have to look at this in the context of the country, and also the country in the context of the world. And so there is no question of this is the oldest. Look at this. We go closer. And this is the part which shows the great Kaveri River and the delta, Kaveri Delta, which according to ancient commentators on the grammar was the original home of the Tamils. Iyal Tamil, Iyal means natural, Tamil, natural to this area. Then it had other I'll show you. The earliest available Tamil literature is a group of poems called Sangam Poems. They were composed from 1st century BC to 2nd century CE. Sangam in Tamil means an assembly of scholars or poets who assembled when any new poetry is presented for assessment to be awarded classical status. Sangam poems are called classics, conforming to prescribed norms and grammar. According to tradition, there were 3 such assemblies, but all the available Tamil poems belong to the last Sangam, the 3rd assembly. There are 2,500 poems altogether, sung by over 200 poets, of whom nearly 60 poets and more bore Sanskrit names like Atreya, Bharadwaja, Gautama, Valmiki, Damodara, Kapila, and so on. These poems were compiled into 2 major groups as 8 anthologies and 10 long poems. 8 Tuhai, that is 8 Tuhai, and 10 party, 10 long poems. Further, they are grouped into 2 other divisions as Aham, poems, and Puram poem, based on the content of the poems. Sangam poems are divided into 2 groups, as I said, Aham and Puram. This division, Aham and Puram, is based on the Natya Shastra, in which dance tradition is divided into Sringara, delicate, and Tandava, vigorous. At the very beginning of Natya Shastra, Bharata says that this was divided into what is called Sringara, which is also called Lasya, and Tandava, which is Avidha. So the whole group of Tamil poems, Chali poems, were also divided into the same group like Sringara and Tandava. So Lasya and vigorous, that is a manly dance. Aham poems stands for Sringara or love themes, that is Kama. Kama is a Sanskrit word. Puram poems are based on heroism, liberality, conquest, death, etc. In other words, they deal with dharma, artha, and moksha. Aham is a Sanskrit word meaning internal experience. Puram is also derived from Sanskrit from the prefix pra, pura, external. Out of 2,500 poems, 2,100 poems deal with Sringara theme. Look at that. 2,100 poems deal with Sringara, the delicate love between man and woman in evocative environment. All of them, all of these 2,100 poems are purely poetic imageries intended for aesthetic enjoyment. Either by listening as musical song or witnessing them in dance. The commentators on these great poems were medieval commentators. They specifically mentioned that these were sung and heard by the kings, the chieftains, and the public, and enjoyed like music and dance. So that these poems were not merely literary compositions, these were musical compositions. The other poem, Puram poem, deal with kings, chieftains, women who were real historic persons who lived like us about 2000 years ago, and whose praise, qualities, heroism, faith, rituals, liberality, conquest, rulership, cremation, etc., all described, but with poetic embellishment. And their consorts used to dance in the court, in the royal assembly, or in public functions. So one is called royal dawn and the other is common dawn. We get, in addition, some historic incidences like conquest, etc. One thing stands out in the Puram poem is that all the kings, early Tamil kings, well-known kings who are sung in the 2,500 poems, performed Vedic sacrifices. Then temple worship. In 2000 years ago, the Tamil culture was permeated by Vedic concept, Vedic culture, Vedic ideas. And they followed the fourfold, what we call Varnasrama Dharma. What is Varnasrama Dharma? Studentship, that is Brahmachari, married life, Grahastha, forest dwelling, that's called Vanaprastha, and recluse. They also had the four Purusharthas, namely Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha as their life motive. So, the earliest known Tamil king and the society was based on this fourfold division as Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. There are specific references to them. And so, they belong to the same structure, culture of the greater India. So also, they had dharma, artha, kama, and moksha as the life motive. So it is one culture that you see 2000 years ago in southern part of India, exactly in Tamil Nadu. There were three dynasties named Cheras, Cholas, and Pandyas, called the three crowned kings. The Cheras were the descendants of the Yadava Krishna. Cholas were the descendants of Ikshvaku, Rama. And the Pandyas belonged to the family of Arjuna. Many people do not know that these kings descended from these great famous kings of northern part of India. Now, this is mentioned specifically in the later Raja Sasanas, called copperplate inscriptions of these dynasties, when they mention that they belong to the Yadava line, they belong to the Ikshvaku line. Ikshvaku belong to the Manu lineage, and the Pandyas belong to the Pandavas, specifically Arjuna. So the whole of early Tamil Nadu 2008 ago, about which we know anything about their history, known from authentic sources, they were ruled by the descendants of Krishna, Rama, and Arjuna. It is their own claim, so it's not our attribution. According to a commentator, they all came from northern part of India down to south with sage Agastya and also settled to rule in the Tamil country. Not only the kings came, but also many chieftains also came with the sage. There is a specific reference to the movement of this king and the chieftains coming from northern part of India with sage Agastya in the Sangam poem, in the poem itself. So we know that there was a migration, and that migration is the cause of settlement of northern kings and chieftains. In Saint Agastya, he said to have taught them Sanskrit and Tamil, both the languages. Many of the Tamil traditions, like grammar, poetry, music, dance, and religious philosophy, were the contribution of Agastya. This is mentioned again and again in many commentaries, many medieval commentaries. So Agastya had a very important role in this process of integrating this whole north and the south. And he is not the Agastya of the earliest Vedic hymns. We know in early Rig Veda Samhita, we have a sage who has sung a hymn who is called Agastya. But they belong to the Agastya Gotra, a descendant of the Agastya. So the details will be taken up during this lecture. In all these poems, this country is always referred to as the country between the Himalayas and Kanyakumari. Kanyakumari is mentioned, and also the Podiyil mountain. Podiyil mountain is a hill which is very near to Kanyakumari, at the southernmost tip of India, where Agastya is settled and lived through his life. So, Podiyal and Kanyakumari are both mentioned in the Sangam poem as the southernmost boundary of this country. From the beginning of known history, it's called Jambudvipa, Navalam Tivu in Tamil. Jambudvipa was one country. That was the concept of one nation. There is no question of introducing a new concept of nation at a very late time after the arrival of the great colonial rulers. The land between the modern Tirupati hills, it is called Vengadam. Many years. Vadavengadam Tenkumari Aidai Tamil Kurum Nallulaham. In the north, Tirupati hills in the north and Kanyakumari in the south, they spoke Tamil language. There were 4 languages spoken in this region called natural Tamil. It is called Iyal Shal. Iyal means nature. Nature to the soil. So natural Tamil, Iyal Shal. So it's also indicating that it was the classical Tamil. Second one, spoken Tamil. It is Tirisol, Vairakku. Seyyulum, Vayakkum. Vayakku is spoken language, spoken Tamil. The third one, the Tamil, which was on the boundaries, mixed with the language of the borderlines. That's called Disa Sol. Sol means Padam, word, you see. So Disa Sol, you have Ear Sol, Tiri Sol, Disa Sol, and the fourth is the northern language. Vada Sol. Vada is north. That represents Sanskrit and Prakrit. We have specific references to these usages of all these four different kinds of language, Tamil and also northern, in the earliest grammar and also in the commentators. They mention about the lands that are around the Kaveri River Valley Delta and mention about these Yatwal, Tiriswal, Disachwal and northern Sanskrit and Prakrit. That means from the known time of history, Tamil Nadu had all these languages integrated into one. So the natural Tamil was spoken in Kaveri River Valley. I showed you the Kaveri River Valley, which was obviously the original home of the Tamils. From very early times, these four languages were used in Sangam Poems and also in inscriptions. We have several inscriptions written in Brahmi character of 1st century BC, where you have both Tamil and also the spoken Prakrit mixed, obviously by the Jaina monks who came probably from this western part of India, and they settled there and lived there and occupied natural caves in and around great towns, particularly in and around Madurai, the capital of the Pandyas. You have a mixed language, the language of both Tamil and Prakrit, or the Jainas, inscribed in Brahmi characters. Brahmi, as you know, is a letter script introduced by Ashoka Maurya the Great in 3rd century BC. Subsequent to that, these Jain monks have come, and probably later, 1 century later or so, the Buddhists have also come. We have several references in the Andhra Desha, where there flourished Amaravati and Nagarjuna Konda, great centers of Buddhist learning, where people from all parts of the world came and learned Buddhism under Buddhist monks, Buddhist teachers. And we have people coming from Gandhara, from China, and also from Dramida Desha. So this is the first reference to Dramila Desha, that is the Tamil was called Dramila in Nagarjuna inscription. And so the script is northern script. The Tamil language was written in northern script. The Tamil language accepted the Varga characters like Ga, Gha, Sha, like this, all northern letters, confirming to what has been said in the grammar that Vadaswal was also used in Tamil compositions in the grammar. Again, from the earliest known history, Sanskrit was inseparably integrated with Tamil. At no point of time, Tamil remained in isolation. There is no such a thing as independent, isolated Tamil culture at any point of time. There were regional variations, no doubt, as in all other parts of India. But the culture was only one. The god they worship, the Tamils, in the Sangam Poem, are the same as Rudra, Durga, Kumara, Muruga, Indra, Varuna, Krishna, Balrama, Rama, and so on. What else? These were the gods they worshipped in the 1st, 2nd century BC to even later, perhaps even much earlier. But these were the gods that were worshipped by the ancient Tamils. The birthright, children, babies, marriage customs, death right are absolutely the same. We have many, many poems, the Sangam classics, referring to all these customs and marriages, death, cremation, burial, unburial, and so on, sati, and vanaprasthas, people who renounce the married life after some time, go to the forest and observe tapas, penance, and then recluses. They are the sannyasis. So the lifestyle and motives are the same. That brings me to one important text, Thirukkural. It's called by Thiruvallur. It is an exceptional text, outstanding text, assignable to 1st century BC, but has the unique advantage of being spoken by all and properly read by none. It is in 3 parts. As Aram means Tamil form of Dharma. Parul, Artha, Kama. So it is divided into 3 parts. And it's a very, very powerful text. The first part deals with the personal life of man. The second deals with man in society. And the third is his erotic life. So what we have about the ancient Sangam Tamil poetry shows that there was a spoken dialect which was natural to the Kaveri river valley called the Tamil. It gradually expanded within the 4 boundaries. On both sides, east and west, they had that ocean, Bay of Bengal, and Arabic Sea. And then what you have, Vengadam, the hills of Lord Venkateswara in the north and Kumari in the south. Now, friends, I can give you a large number of instances of each and every poem, but it will be tedious. So I thought this is just sufficient to have an introduction to what was there in early Tamil society, the language, the script, their faith, their consecratory rites, the kings performing Vedic sacrifices like Rajasuya. One of the king was called, Chola king was called Rajasuyam Vetta Perunarkilli. As Perunarkilli was his natural name, and Rajasuyam Vetta, he performed Rajasuya. Most of the Chola kings have performed Rajasuya. Pandyas. Pandya Palyaga Salai Muduhudimi Peruvedi. Palyagashalai. He established many Yagashala in memory of his yajnas he performed. So it's called Palyagashalai. His name is Mudugudimi Peruvedi. And also Chera, the famous king Cheran Senguttuvan. He performed Rajasuya at the end. So it was, and if you listen to the poem, they say everywhere you move through the rural areas, you listen to the beautiful chants of Vedas. And so it is not correct as many modern people claim that it was exceptionally different and individualistic and Tamil is individual culture and so on, earliest culture and all. There is no pramana. We are all pramana patus. That is, we base our conclusion on solid evidences, verifiable evidences from many sources. The sources are literature, coins, inscriptions, and music and dance. There are several references to music and dance. And how they composed the poem and how another person set it to music and how a dance master set it to dance. So we have all these extraordinary information about fine arts, music, dance, and so the literature and music and dance are called the three great Tamils. Three great Tamils. Muttamil. Muttamil means three Tamils. What are the three Tamils? Is literature, music, and dance. So if one has to claim that he is a scholar of Tamil, he must know not only literature but also music and also dance. We have 7 long compositions in one group of anthology called Paripadal. And Paripadal speaks about 3 subjects. One subject was the sports in the river Vaigai. Vaigai river is there in the city of Madurai. And so men and women go and have what we call water sports. So this is a very well-known theme. And then another one in praise of Lord Vishnu, Thirumal, in all his incarnations, Vyuha form and Avatara form. And then the third is Muruga. In Tamil Nadu, people are more attached to Muruga, who is Kumara, Shiva's son. So we have 70 compositions, long compositions. And these are composed for dance, and they were dance. And also both one is called Devapani, in praise of God, and the other one are called these water sports. Like that, we have the Aham poems are marvelous poetry, wonderful poetry. I can cite only one poem. A young man, there was no hotel there on the long distance. He came from the nearby village. He went through the street. We saw one door open, and so he stood there and called a young girl. She came and he said, "I am thirsty, please give me water." So she went and brought and gave water and just poured it. And now they used to take it like this. But the girl was so beautiful, and the boy was young. He couldn't resist the temptation. He just held her hand. Instantaneously, the girl shouted, "Mother, mother!" Mother came running out. What happened? In the meanwhile, the girl looked at this boy, so beautiful, full of love. She said, "Nothing. He has come here for water. I am giving him." And the mother was also an experienced person. She looked at both of them, laughed, and went inside. This is just in 3 or 4 sentences, this episode is mentioned to show how young emotions meet together. And the elder society could understand and appreciate. Like that, you have 2,100 poems, each one in different mode of expression. We have many do-to literature, sending parrots as embassies, do so. Like Mega Sandesa Kavya, peacock. And all these, there are quite a number of these birds and animals which are mentioned, which are sent as ambassadors, love ambassadors from man to woman and woman to man and so on, in different situations. And these are exceptionally beautiful for dance. Everywhere there are dancers, musicians, and they used to dance, particularly the Viralis who are mentioned in that poem. They used to dance. And the kings used to present golden chains, pearl chains, and so on. The Puram poem, we have a very interesting, the very first Puram poem says the king was the embodiment of Pancha Mahabhutas. What are the Pancha Mahabhutas? You know, Prithvi, Apu, Tejas, Vayu, and Akasa. This is a thing that is mentioned in the Dharma Shastra. So that is mentioned. Then it says that he fed the army of the Kauravas and Pandavas in the great Mahabharata battle. So the very first Tamil Puram poem refers to the king of the Tamils participating in the Mahabharata battle. And the third one, the same poem says, Nal Veda Nari, that is Chatur Veda Marga. And the fourth point it mentioned, the very first poem, says that Brahmanas were performing yaga between Himalayas and the Kanyakumari, where the beautiful mrigas, antelope, used to come and sit down and just take rest. So, from the very beginning of the society, both in the Aham theme and also in Puram theme, love theme and external life, this was one country, one culture, one emotion, one poetic. I am going to talk to you about it tomorrow. One poetic subject. It is extraordinary, but the number of poems that are available are extraordinary. 2,000-year-old poem, apart from Sanskrit and also Prakrit. The one regional language which has got maximum number of absolute beautiful poetic language, poetic compositions for the delight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nagaswamy. Thank you.